Hey folks, just a quick reminder before we get started. Make sure to follow Sky Alert USA so you don't miss this and future updates. We'd really appreciate your support, so if you could subscribe, like and drop a comment, that'd mean a lot to us. Thanks for being part of our community. Good morning and welcome to Sky Alert USA. I'm bringing you a critical weather update for Sunday, February 15th, 2026. We are tracking multiple significant weather events across the United States and Canada today, including a powerful winter storm system impacting California, severe drought conditions reaching historic levels in Florida, dangerous cold persisting across eastern regions following the polar vortex collapse, and severe thunderstorm warnings currently active across the southern states. This is shaping up to be one of the most consequential weather periods of the winter season, and we're here to break down everything you need to know to stay safe and prepared. Breaking news, folks. The meteorological story dominating North America this February is the confirmed stratospheric warming event and subsequent polar vortex collapse that occurred in mid-February 2026. This high-energy atmospheric event has fundamentally disrupted the Northern Hemisphere's circulation patterns, creating widespread and prolonged impacts across both the United States and Canada. For those unfamiliar with this phenomenon, the polar vortex is typically the keeper of Arctic cold air, confining it to the polar regions when it remains strong and stable. However, when this circulation breaks down or collapses, as we're witnessing now, that Arctic air mass can escape southward into the mid-latitudes, bringing proper winter weather far beyond what many regions would normally experience. The stratospheric warming event began its early phase in the first week of February, with forecasters detecting unusual temperature spikes in the stratosphere, the layer of atmosphere above where we experience daily weather. These temperature anomalies signaled the beginning of a major disruption that would fundamentally alter weather patterns for weeks to come. By mid-February, the polar vortex had effectively split and collapsed, opening what meteorologists call the Arctic doors wide open. This has allowed successive waves of bitterly cold Arctic air to plunge southward across North America, bringing temperatures 20 to 30 degrees Fahrenheit below normal to regions stretching from Canada's prairie provinces all the way down to the Gulf Coast states. The impacts have been severe and far-reaching. In late January, just ahead of the main collapse, a massive winter storm system nicknamed Winter Storm Fern by the Weather Channel carved a devastating path across nearly 2,000 miles of territory, from northern Mexico through the southern and northeastern United States and into Canada. This storm brought a catastrophic mix of snow, sleet, freezing rain and ice that paralyzed transportation networks, knocked out power to hundreds of thousands, and tragically claimed lives across multiple states. The storm's impact was so extensive that at one point over 230 million people were under some form of winter weather alert, one of the highest totals ever recorded. States from the Four Corners region to Maine found themselves under winter storm warnings, with some areas receiving multiple feet of snow, while others dealt with dangerous ice accumulations that brought down power lines and made travel virtually impossible. Following that initial assault, the pattern has remained relentlessly cold and stormy across the eastern two-thirds of North America. The NOAA Winter Storm Severity Index has repeatedly shown major to extreme impact levels across the Carolinas, mid-Atlantic states, and New England, with dangerous wind chills, heavy snowfall, and persistent bitter cold affecting daily life for tens of millions of people. Right now, as we speak on this Sunday morning of February 15th, California is being hammered by what meteorologists are calling the state's first major storm system in several weeks. After a brief respite from the atmospheric river events that battered the state in early January, a powerful new storm is bringing heavy rain to lower elevations and massive snowfall to the mountains. The National Weather Service has issued winter storm warnings from 10 p.m. Friday through 4 p.m. Monday across the Sierra Nevada and surrounding mountain ranges. Snow accumulations are expected to be extraordinary, with some forecasts calling for up to 7 feet of snow at Donner Pass by Wednesday. Blue Canyon could receive between 3 to 6 feet, and even lower elevation foothill communities like Colfax may see 1 to 3 inches of accumulation, unusual for these typically milder areas. This is particularly significant because snow levels are dropping to around 1,500 feet in the Sierra foothills, bringing winter conditions to areas that rarely see such impacts. Paired with sustained winds of 20 to 30 miles per hour, with gusts potentially reaching 45 miles per hour in some areas, the mountains and foothills are experiencing near blizzard conditions with extremely low visibility. The rain situation in the valleys is equally concerning. Sacramento, Vacaville and Marysville are forecast to receive up to 2 inches of rain by Sunday evening, with the heaviest and steadiest precipitation hitting San Francisco from late Sunday through Monday. The city by the bay typically receives just under 4 inches of rain during the entire month of February, so this single storm system could dump a significant portion of the month's normal precipitation in just 24 to 48 hours. The risk of urban flooding is elevated across much of Northern California, particularly in areas with poor drainage. Small streams and short-run rivers flowing out of the mountains could experience flash flooding as the heavy rainfall combines with snowmelt from slightly warmer temperatures at lower elevations. Thunderstorms are also possible, particularly on Saturday afternoon, which could bring locally severe conditions including powerful wind gusts, small hail, and even the possibility of brief tornadoes. But here's where the situation becomes even more critical. Southern California is also in the crosshairs. Los Angeles city officials issued evacuation warnings on Saturday for several wildfire burn areas, including multiple zones affected by the Palisades fire. The warning is in effect from 9 p.m. Sunday through 9 a.m. Tuesday due to the heightened risk of debris flows and mudslides. Burn scars are particularly vulnerable during heavy rainfall events because the vegetation that normally stabilizes hillsides has been destroyed, allowing water, mud, rocks and debris to move downhill with devastating speed and force. Residents in the affected zones have been urged to review evacuation plans, gather essential items, and stay alert for potential evacuation orders as conditions develop. San Bernardino County has issued a winter storm watch for mountain communities from Monday morning through Thursday morning, with 2 separate rounds of heavy snowfall expected. Wind gusts in the mountains could reach 60 to 70 miles per hour, creating extremely dangerous whiteout conditions where visibility may drop below a quarter mile. Travel could become very difficult or even impossible during peak periods, particularly during Monday morning's commute, and again later in the week as the second wave of snow moves through. Major cities like Los Angeles and San Diego could receive up to 5 inches of rain over the coming days, significantly raising the risk of flash flooding throughout the metropolitan areas. The Fox Forecast Center has issued a low-level flash flood threat rating, but conditions could deteriorate rapidly if rainfall rates exceed current forecasts, or if storms train repeatedly over the same areas. Historic Florida drought crisis. While California grapples with too much water, Florida is facing the opposite extreme. A devastating and rapidly worsening drought that's reached historic proportions. As of February 10th, 100% of Florida is experiencing some form of drought conditions. And honestly, that's a truly unprecedented situation for the Sunshine State. The statistics are, well, sobering. 43% of Florida is now under extreme drought conditions, the fourth level out of 5 on the drought classification scale, nearly doubling from just 1 week earlier when only 24% of the state was in this category. Even more concerning, 85% of the entire state is experiencing severe drought or worse, up from 79% the previous week. This is the worst drought situation Florida has faced since March 2001, more than 25 years ago. The impacts are already severe and, just worsening by the day. The Florida Forest Service is reporting more than 650 wildfires since January 1st, with over 20 currently active and burning out of control, plus an additional 60 fires that are contained but still burning across the state. More than 21,000 acres have already been consumed by flames in 2026, and we're only 6 weeks into the year. Governor Ron DeSantis signed Executive Order 26-33 earlier this week in response to the crisis, declaring a state of emergency and directing state agencies to coordinate drought response efforts. The order also paves the way for Florida to request federal disaster assistance from the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the Small Business Administration. Water shortage restrictions are now in effect across all 5 of Florida's water management districts. Many municipalities have implemented strict limits on lawn watering, car washing, and other non-essential water uses. In South Florida, where conditions are particularly severe, with an extreme drought patch near the Miami-Dade and Collier County line, residents are being advised to drastically reduce water consumption as the Biscayne aquifer levels continue to decline. The wildfire danger is extreme. Counties across Florida have enacted burn bans prohibiting all outdoor burning. In North Florida, Central West Florida, Southwest Florida, the Treasure Coast, and areas surrounding Lake Okeechobee, these restrictions are strictly enforced with potential penalties for violations. The combination of bone-dry vegetation, low humidity levels, and breezy conditions creates a tinderbox situation where a single spark could ignite a rapidly spreading fire. The rainfall deficit is staggering. Jacksonville and Tallahassee have recorded more than 13 inches below average precipitation since last August. Jacksonville alone is nearly a foot behind where rainfall total should be for this time of year. January 2026 was the 20th driest January in Florida's 131 years of official record-keeping. Unfortunately, significant relief is not on the horizon. While some scattered showers and thunderstorms are expected this weekend, particularly across the Panhandle and Central Florida, the amounts will be minimal, likely less than half an inch in most areas. These brief rains will not put a dent in the long-term drought. The Climate Prediction Center's extended outlook continues to show below-average rainfall for Florida over the next 3 months, compounding an already dire situation. Severe weather outbreak across the southern states. Even as this broadcast is being prepared, the National Weather Service has issued multiple severe thunderstorm warnings across portions of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Texas. Strong to severe thunderstorms are currently tracking eastward across the region, bringing damaging winds, heavy rainfall, and the potential for isolated tornadoes. The Storm Prediction Center issued a slight risk of excessive rainfall from the Arklatex region into the Mid-South for today. A positively tilted upper-level trough is pivoting across the southern plains, while a surface low-pressure system rapidly intensifies. By tonight, this system is expected to develop into what meteorologists are calling a rather anomalous mid-latitude cyclone, essentially an unusually powerful winter storm for this latitude and time of year. As of Saturday evening, severe thunderstorms were producing 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts across portions of Louisiana, with radar indicating a line of intense convection extending from near Baton Rouge southward to the coast. The National Weather Service offices in Lake Charles, Jackson, and New Orleans issued multiple severe thunderstorm warnings through the late evening hours, warning of potential damage to roofs, siding, and trees. The severe weather threat is forecast to shift eastward through Sunday, spreading heavy rainfall and potential thunderstorms across the southeast and into portions of the mid-Atlantic. Rainfall totals of 1 to 3 inches are expected across a wide area, with localized amounts of 3 to 5 inches possible where frontal convergence and training thunderstorms occur. This poses a flash flooding risk, particularly in urban areas and locations with poor drainage. The timing couldn't be worse for the Daytona 500, NASCAR's premier event scheduled for today at Daytona International Speedway. With Arctic fronts and cool, breezy conditions possible, race fans and teams will need to be prepared for potential weather delays and chilly temperatures unusual for Florida in mid-February. The Canada situation: winter's iron grip. Our neighbours to the north are experiencing some of the most challenging winter conditions in recent memory. The stratospheric warming and polar vortex collapse have opened the floodgates for repeated blasts of Arctic air to pour southward from Canada's far north, bringing life-threatening cold and heavy snow to population centres across multiple provinces. Atlantic Canada has been particularly hard hit, dealing with its third major nor'easter in just 3 weeks. Environment Canada issued an orange storm warning for eastern Newfoundland through Tuesday morning, with the Avalon and Burin peninsulas expecting between 35 and 50 centimetres of snow, accompanied by wind gusts up to 100 kilometres per hour. These extreme conditions create dangerous whiteout situations and make travel virtually impossible. The record-breaking winter storm that pounded Ontario and Quebec in late January left its mark across a vast area. Toronto, Kingston and many communities across southern Ontario received between 40 and 60 centimetres of snow in a single event, amounts rarely seen even in regions accustomed to harsh winters. All school boards across the Greater Toronto Area declared snow days, a relatively rare occurrence that speaks to the severity of the conditions. What makes this particular pattern especially challenging is the persistence of the cold. Typically, southern Ontario experiences a thaw within a few days of a major snowstorm, allowing some of the accumulation to melt. However, Environment Canada meteorologists are warning that this time is different. The long-range forecast through mid-February continues to show temperatures below normal, meaning the snow that has fallen will remain on the ground for an extended period. Western Canada, particularly interior British Columbia and Alberta, has seen an active pattern with frequent storms throughout the winter season. While this has been beneficial for mountain snowpack and ski resorts, the persistent storms have created their own challenges for transportation and daily life in affected communities. The Trans-Canada Highway across the prairies remains exposed to extreme cold, blowing and drifting snow, and rapid visibility collapses. The Highway 401 Auto Route 20 corridor through southern Ontario and Quebec, one of North America's busiest transportation routes, has been repeatedly impacted by snow-to-ice transitions that create treacherous driving conditions during peak commute times. Temperature-wise, the cold has been unrelenting. Toronto's February temperatures are running well below normal, with average lows ranging from -8 to -10 degrees Celsius, and highs struggling to reach -4 to -1 degree Celsius. Ottawa and Montreal have experienced similar conditions, with the bitter cold occasionally dropping to dangerous levels, where exposed skin can freeze in minutes. Today's forecast and 3-day outlook, well, here's what you need to know for Sunday, February 15th. Out on the west coast, heavy rain is still coming down across those California valleys, and mountain snow is just getting more intense. You can expect some pretty hazardous travel over all the major mountain passes. Los Angeles and San Diego, you folks are looking at a rising flood risk. Temperatures in the valleys are staying pretty mild, in the mid-50s to low 60s, but up in those mountains it's cold, teens to 20s. Now, for the Great Basin and Intermountain West, snow is spreading across Utah, Nevada, and even parts of Arizona. Salt Lake City might finally pick up its first inch of snow after only 1/10 of an inch all winter, compared to a historical average of 37 inches by mid-February. That's something. It's cold out there, with highs just in the 30s and 40s. Over the Great Plains, we've got some really unusual warmth ahead of the storm. Parts of Nebraska and Iowa could see temperatures up to 30 degrees above what you'd expect for mid-February, maybe even breaking some records. That warm air is fueling moisture for the severe weather threat farther south. Speaking of the south and southeast, it's still pretty active with thunderstorms, heavy rain, and the chance of severe weather here and there. There's a flash flood threat from Texas all the way to the Carolinas. Temperatures are running 15 to 20 degrees above normal in many spots, with highs in the 60s and 70s. Florida, though, is mostly dry, but that means extreme drought and fire danger are still a problem. In the Midwest and around the Great Lakes, lake-enhanced snow is still falling downwind of Lakes Erie and Ontario. Cold air is settled in, with highs in the 20s and 30s. Folks in Chicago, Detroit, and Cleveland are dealing with typical winter conditions, but those wind chills make it feel even colder. Up in the northeast, bitter cold is hanging on, with temperatures well below average. New York City, Boston and Philadelphia are only looking at highs in the 30s, with overnight lows dropping into the teens and 20s. Wind chills are making it feel like single digits in quite a few areas. There's a chance for some light snow, but, major storm threats are fading for now. The Mid-Atlantic is cold as well, with the possibility of a wintry mix in some spots. Washington, D.C., Baltimore and Richmond are all seeing seasonally cold weather, and there's a risk of icy roads. Up in Canada, there's an intense winter storm impacting Newfoundland and Labrador, bringing blizzard conditions. Heavy snow warnings are out across Atlantic Canada. Ontario and Quebec are dealing with extreme cold and lingering snow, and the prairies are just plain frigid with dangerous wind chills. British Columbia is active too, with snow in the interior regions. Now, looking ahead to Monday, February 16th, that cross-country storm system keeps tracking east. The heaviest rain will move into the southeast and mid-Atlantic, with the potential for 1 to 3 inches of widespread rainfall. The severe weather threat will ease up a bit, but flooding concerns are still going to be elevated. California's storm continues with more heavy mountain snow and valley rain. The cold pattern will get even stronger across the eastern US as Arctic air pushes south behind the storm. Dangerous wind chills will spread across the northern plains and upper Midwest. In Canada, winter storm impacts continue across the Atlantic provinces, and that extreme cold spreads across the prairies. For Tuesday, February 17th, a second wave of Pacific moisture comes into California, bringing more heavy rain and mountain snow. Snow levels might drop even lower, so accumulating snow could reach those intermediate elevations. The storm, from Monday, moves offshore, but leftover moisture could bring snow to interior New England and upstate New York. Temperatures across the eastern US will stay below normal, but there'll be some slow moderation. High pressure will start building over the Central Plains, setting us up for another pattern change later in the week. Canada's cold pattern sticks around, with no real warm-up in sight, and Alberta and Saskatchewan are looking at another blast of Arctic air. Critical alerts and warnings currently in effect. Let's run through them. There's a winter storm warning for California's Sierra Nevada, the Cascade Range, and several other mountain areas. Flash flood watches are up for Southern California burn areas. Severe thunderstorm warnings are ongoing this Saturday evening in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Texas. The excessive rainfall outlook shows a slight risk from the Arc Latex region to the Mid-South. There's a wind advisory for the northern and central Sacramento Valley. Avalanche warnings are posted for the central Sierra Nevada with high danger. Extreme drought is affecting 43% of Florida, and severe drought is covering 85% of the state. Most of Florida is under a fire weather watch, and burn bans are widespread across the region. There's also a winter storm warning for eastern Newfoundland, Canada, and Arctic outbreak warnings for the Canadian prairies. The atmospheric science behind this pattern, well, it's a bit complex, but let me break it down. The persistence and severity of these weather patterns are directly tied to a stratospheric warming event and the way it's disrupted the polar vortex. When the stratosphere warms up rapidly, like temperatures spiking way above normal at altitudes of 10 to 30 miles above Earth's surface, it really messes with the strong west to east winds that usually keep Arctic air bottled up near the poles. That disruption trickles down through the atmosphere over several days or even weeks, and eventually it changes the weather we feel right here at the surface. What happens is the polar jet stream gets all twisted up, creating what we call extreme meridional flow. Basically, instead of moving west to east like usual, air masses swing much more north to south. The end result is a blocking pattern, where high-pressure ridges and low-pressure troughs get stuck in place for quite a while. Right now, we've got blocking high pressure over Greenland and northeastern Canada, and that's forcing storm systems to take more southerly tracks through the US, while at the same time Arctic air is spilling south through the Great Plains and into the Mississippi Valley. It's honestly a textbook response to a stratospheric warming event, and the thing to watch out for is that these patterns usually stick around for 4 to 8 weeks once they get going. So we could be looking at recurring cold blasts, more storms, and just plain volatile weather well into March, maybe even early April. It's already been a long, tough winter for a lot of folks. Now, to add to the mix, the Madden-Julian Oscillation, or MJO, a tropical atmospheric wave, has thrown in some extra complexity. Back in early February, the MJO actually shielded parts of the central and eastern US from the full brunt of the stratospheric warming, giving us a brief stretch of above normal temperatures. But that interference is fading now, so the connection between the stratosphere and our surface weather is coming back strong, and that's why we're seeing this uptick in cold and stormy conditions. Long-range outlook for late February and beyond. Looking past our 3-day forecast, the patterns expected to stay challenging through the rest of February and into early March. The Climate Prediction Center's outlooks still point toward below normal temperatures across the eastern two-thirds of the United States and much of Canada, while above normal precipitation is